Theranos, a blood testing company, and its founder, Elizabeth Holmes, were on top of the world in 2014. Theranos was a groundbreaking idea conceived by a lady recognized as a genius who dubbed herself a female Steve Jobs at the time. Theranos was one of Silicon Valley unicorn firms, valued at an estimated $9 billion, and Holmes was the world's youngest female self-made billionaire. Then everything came crumbling down. What happened to Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos that she is now embroiled in 4 years trial that is still ongoing till today? Elizabeth Holmes was born in Washington, D.C. on February 3, 1984. Christine Rasmus Holmes IV. Her father was a vice president at Enron, an energy firm that went bankrupt following an accounting fraud scandal, while her mother, Noel Ann, worked as staffer for a congressional committee. Holmes went to St. John's School in Houston. Throughout his high school, she was interested in computer programming and claimed to have started her business selling C++ compiler to Chinese institutions. Holmes began to attending Stanford University's summer Mandarin program halfway through high school after her parents arranged for Mandarin Chinese home tutoring. Holmes earned a bachelor degree in chemical engineering from Stanford University in 2022 and worked as a student researcher and laboratory assistant in School of Engineering. After finishing her freshman year, Holmes worked in a laboratory at the Genome Institute of Singapore, collecting blood samples with syringes to screen for the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, SARS-CoV-1. In 2003, she filed her first patent application for a wearable medicine delivery patch. In March 2004, she dropped out of Stanford University of Stanford School of Engineering and used her tuition money to start a consumer healthcare technology company with her friends. Theranos, founding. In 2003, Holmes founded Real-Time Cures in Palo Alto, California, with the goal of democratizing healthcare. Holmes used her aversion to needles to motivate her to perform blood tests with only a few drops of blood. When Holmes first proposed to her Stanford medicine professor, Phyllis Gardner, the idea of extracting a huge amount of data from a few droplets of blood generated from a tip of a finger, she was told it was impossible. Several other well-known medical academies agreed with Gardner. Holmes, on the other hand, was steadfast, and she was able to persuade Channing Robertson, her advisor and dean at the School of Engineering, to back her idea. Holmes renamed Theranos in 2003, a combination of the word therapy and diagnosis. Robertson became the company's first director and introduced Holmes to venture capitalists. Holmes admired Apple's founder, Steve Jobs, and consciously imitated his style, regularly wearing a black turtleneck sweater just like Jobs do. As a child, Holmes claimed her mother dressed her in black turtlenecks, while one employee claimed she proposed in 2007 that Holmes replicated Jobs' renowned Issey Miyake turtleneck look. Although a former Theranos co-worker later claimed he overheard her speaking in the voice of a regular woman in her 20s to greet him when he was new, she spoke in a deep baritone voice throughout most of her public appearance. Her family, on the other hand, is adamant that her baritone voice is authentic. Theranos expansion. Holmes had raised $6 million in funding for his firm by December 2004. Theranos had raised more than $92 million in venture funding by the end of 2010. Former Secretary of State George Shultz was introduced to Holmes in July 2011. He was elected to Theranos' board of directors. Over the next 3 years, Holmes was credited with assembling the most distinguished board in the US business history. Until September 2013, when Theranos announced a partnership with Walgreens to deploy in-store blood sample collection centers, Holmes operated Theranos in stealth mode with no press release or corporate website. Eric Topol, the editor-in-chief of Medscape, interviewed her and complimented her for this incredible resetting of laboratory medicine. In 2014, when Holmes ventured on the cover of Fortune, Forbes, the New York Times style magazine, the media interest grew. In 2014, Forbes named Holmes the world's youngest self-made female millionaire, placing her at number 110 on the Forbes 400. Theranos had raised more than $400 million in venture funding and was valued at $9 billion. Her name appeared on 18 US patents and 66 foreign patents by the end of 2014. In 2015, Holmes signed an agreement to use Theranos technology with Cleveland Clinic, Capital Blue Cross, and Amira Health Caritas. Downfall. After receiving a tip from a medical expert who thought the Edison blood testing equipment seemed odd, John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal launched a secret, months-long investigation into Theranos. Carreyrou gathered a company paper and spoke with ex-employee whistleblowers. When Holmes learned about the inquiry, she launched a campaign to dissuade Carreyrou from publishing, which included legal and financial threats against both of the journal and the whistleblowers through her lawyer David Bowes. Carreyrou published a bombshell article in October 2015, despite both legal threats and strong-arm tactics, detailing how the Edison device gave inaccurate results and revealing that the company had been using commercially available machines made by other manufacturers for the majority of its testing. In a series of articles, Carreyrou proceeded to expose problems with the firm and Holmes' behavior, and in 2018, he published Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley startup, which detailed his investigation of Theranos. All of the allegations were refuted by Holmes, who called the journal a tabloid and promised that the company will provide data on the accuracy of its testing. The same evening the piece was published, she appeared on CNBC's Mad Money. The article was brutal. Kramer observed, "This is what happens when you work to change things. First they think you are crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world," Holmes said. After an examination of Theranos Newark, California laboratory in January 2016, the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Service (CMS) issued a warning letter to the company, citing issues with personnel proficiency, processes, and equipment. After the business failed to fix concerns in its California lab in March 2016, CMS regulators imposed a 2-year restriction on Holmes owning or running a certified clinical laboratory. Holmes claimed on the Today Show that she was devastated that we did not notice and fix these issues sooner, and that the lab will be rebuilt with the support of new scientific and medical advisory board. Holmes was barred from owning, operating or directing a blood testing service for 2 years by CMS in July 2016. Theranos filed an appeal with the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Walgreens cut ties with Theranos and shuttered its in-store blood collection site shortly after. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration also ordered the business to stop using one of its major technologies, the capillary tube nanotiner device. The state of Arizona sued Theranos in 2017, alleging that the firm sold 1.5 million blood tests to Arizona residents while suppressing or misrepresenting crucial facts about the tests. The action was settled in April 2017 when the firm agreed to return the cost of the test to consumer as well as pay $225,000 in civil fines and attorney fees, totaling $4.65 million. An unnamed investigation by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation is also continuing, as are 2 class action fraud cases. Holmes vehemently denied any misconduct on his part. On May 16, 2017, nearly all Theranos shareholders agreed to dismiss all current and potential litigation in exchange for preferred stock. To compensate for any stock value lost to non-participating shareholders, Holmes surrendered a portion of her equity. The Security and Exchange Commission (SEC) charged Holmes and Ramesh Balwani, Theranos' former president, with defrauding investors by collecting more than $700 million while selling a fake product in March 2018. Holmes agreed to a settlement with the Securities and Exchange Commission on March 14, 2018. The corporation was accused of defrauding the government by claiming that their technology was being used in combat by the U.S. Department of Defense. In 2014, the company also deceived when it claimed to have revenue stream of $100 million when the company only made $100,000 that year. Holmes agreed to hand over voting control of Theranos in exchange for 10 years prohibition from having an officer position in public corporation and a $500,000 fine. Theranos had over 800 employees at its peak in 2015. In October 2016, it fired 340 individuals, followed by another 155 in January 2015. Theranos submitted a Warrant Act notice with the state of California in April 2018, indicating its plan to lay off 105 employees permanently. In August 2018, the majority of the remaining staff were laid off. The company declared on September 5, 2018, that it has started the process of formally dissolving, with the remaining cash and assets being handed to its creditors. Criminal charges. A federal grand jury indicted Holmes and former Theranos chief operating officers and president Ramesh Sunny Balwani on 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud on June 15, 2018. After a 2-year investigation by the United States Attorney Office for the Northern District of California in San Francisco, both defendants entered no guilty pleas. Prosecutors claimed that Holmes and Balwani conspired to swindle investors in one scam and doctors and patients in the other. Following the indictment, Holmes stepped down as CEO of Theranos but remained on the board of directors. According to Bloomberg News, Holmes and Balwani were investigating a possible defense strategy of blaming the media for Theranos' demise, as well as whether journalist John Carreyrou reporting influenced government regulatory agency unduly in order to write a sensational story for the Wall Street Journal. Holmes planned to blame Balwani, who controlled her to the point that she was unable to make her own judgment. According to later revealed records, Mrs. Holmes intended to present evidence that Mr. Balwani verbally disparaged her and withdrew affection if she displeased him, controlled what she ate, how she dressed, how much money she could spend, and who she could interact with, effectively dominating her and erasing her capacity to make decisions. Holmes could potentially be working on a mental flaw case to explain why she was easily manipulated by Balwani. According to the Mercury News, Holmes' legal team in a class action civil case, Cooley LLP requested that the court allow them to stop representing her, claiming that she had not paid them in a year for service and that Cooley has no expectation that Mrs. Holmes will ever pay for its service as her counsel. The Recorder reported in November 2019 that Senior District Judge H. Russell Holland, who was handling the civil case, has indicated that Cooley might withdraw. Holmes' defense asked a federal court in February 2020 to dismiss all charges against her and her co-defendant Balwani because the Theranos blood tests were paid for the medical insurance company. A federal judge concluded that the same charges should be dropped. The patients were not deprived of any money or property. Prosecutors were no longer able to claim that doctors and patients were the victim of fraud. The 11 accusations of wire fraud, on the other hand, were upheld by the judge. Prosecutors filed a third superseding indictment in August 2020, adding a 12th fraud charge involving a patient blood test. Holmes and her legal team responded by claiming that the new indictment is a violation of her rights because the grand jury that handled it was formed during the pandemic and was not drawn at random from a representative sample of the community, and they demanded access to the jury selection records. Prosecutors then urged the court to reject Holmes' motion, claiming that she was asking for too much by claiming without justification that the jurors were illegally chosen. In late August 2020, Holmes' legal team submitted new filing asking for the dismissal of 7 of the 12 felony fraud counts, saying that the judge Edward Davila erred in his understanding of the Theranos investors' duties. When the judge supervising the case determined that government prosecutors and interrogated Holmes in September 2002, Bloomberg News reported that Holmes was considering a mental disorder defense for her criminal fraud prosecution. Federal prosecutors accused Holmes and other executives of destroying evidence during Theranos' final days in business. The government, according to Holmes' counsel, is still responsible for failing to preserve vital evidence. The evidence in question concerned Theranos' history of internal testing, as well as the accuracy and failure rates of its blood testing technologies. Former Safeway CEO Stephen Bird testified in Elizabeth Holmes' criminal trial in October 2021 about his company's choice to invest extensively in a partnership with her blood testing startup Theranos, which ultimately failed. According to Bird, Safeway and Theranos inked a contract in September 2010 for an estimated financial commitment of $85 million, while $30 million was set aside for retail renovation, according to Bird, an amount that turned out to be very low. Bird testified that Theranos missed the deadline after deadline when it came to the partnership deployment plan. As of now, the trial is still ongoing, and Elizabeth Holmes can face up to 20 years in prison, while in her stance, she continued to plead not guilty.